Hey Guru Nation, welcome to episode 155 of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. My name is Dan Sfera. Today we're going to be talking about, and I've been getting lots of inquiries from both people that want to be CRAs that have no background in research, and most of them are in for a rude awakening once they get in the industry, and also site owners, like people that want to open research clinics, and then vice versa, people who are CRAs that want to open sites, or coordinators that want to become CRAs. So those people, if you have a research background at all, this episode may or may not be for you. It's not really intended for you primarily. It's intended for the people with zero industry-sponsored clinical research experience. So, and also, if you have academic experience but you want to get in on the private industry side, this might apply for you as well. So, I don't think people who have never worked in this industry understand just how much work is required if you're going to have a career or a business in this industry. So, I see this same ideas from people who want to join my academy, and I get them on the phone, and the first thing I tell them is there's a lot of work into being a CRA. It's very unlikely that you're going to start out as a CRA. You're going to have to work, keyword, work your way up into a CRA status. If that's actually something that you find out that you actually want to do, because you might think that you want to be a CRA when you have no knowledge about what they do. And then when you actually start doing a fraction of the activities CRAs do during our internship program, or maybe as a study coordinator, they get second thoughts, and then they want to go open a clinic, or they want to do something else. Maybe they just want to be a coordinator, or maybe they don't want to be in the industry at all. That one's not as common. I've seen people that thought they wanted to be CRAs, and then actually what they ended up wanting to do was open a site, or work for a site, or be a trial master file specialist, or just do like one of those jobs, like a couple rungs on the ladder beneath a CRA. All right, as far as salary, as far as prestige, as far as responsibilities, because with the high salary comes a lot of responsibilities and a lot of work. So this episode is really aimed at research naive people, and this could be doctors that want to be PIs. This could be random people that think they want to be CRAs. This could be random people that want to open a site. Okay, it's very difficult to understand the amount of work required in this industry if you have not been in this industry previously. So I'm going to break it down for you a little bit, as much as I can, in a 20-25 minute podcast, and let you do your own research. Okay, so there's tons of videos I've done interviews with people. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from getting into this industry. I think it's great that people are trying to become CRAs. There's a CRA shortage, for one. I think it's great that people are trying to open research clinics. We need more investigators. We need more physicians. We need more research-naive doctors involved in research to tackle the patient recruitment difficulties that the industry has been plagued with since the beginning of the clinical research industry in general. Patient recruitment is at the forefront of that, I really believe, and it's the thesis of my CRO that we need more research-naive physicians with robust patient populations in their private practices to enter the clinical research industry. And guess what? The industry needs more CRAs. So the problem is they're not going to take anyone without experience. And the problem is, if you don't have any experience, You may think you want to be a CRA, but you don't even really know what that is. So I'm going to try to break it down for those wanting to be CRAs, or those wanting to be coordinators, or those wanting to open up their own clinics. Just the sheer amount of work that this industry requires of everybody. So let's start with the CRAs. Okay, I did a quick 1-minute video on YouTube, but here's a typical CRA's month. Okay, and disclosure, yes, I am a part-time contract CRA. My workload is not indicative of the typical CRA workload. First of all, most CRAs are not independent contractors, which means independent contractors actually earn more and work a little less if they want to. They can control their schedule. Most CRAs are W-2 employees, and they're salaried. So they get paid regardless of the amount of sites they monitor. And guess what? When you're brand new as a CRA, they're going to send you to a lot of sites because they got a lot of billable hours that they can bill the sponsor for you going out to sites. That's how CROs who hire the CRAs get paid. They get paid when CRAs go on site. Those are called billable hours. Every CRO has their own requirement for how many days on site a CRA has to do per month as a salaried employee. Typically, salaried CRAs are required to go 8 to 15 days on site a month. So that means at least 1/3 to 1/2 of the time every month you are on site. Means you are sitting in a chair at a site with regulatory documents, source documents, your laptop in front of you, your lunch, your snacks, everything there, your report, your trip report, which you're going to be writing, and you may or may not get to finish prior to you leaving the site, and then the investigational product. So typically you go in at 9 a.m., you lock yourself in a room, you get up to go to the bathroom, you get up maybe to ask the coordinator for another source binder or another regulatory binder or the investigational product so you can do IP reconciliation. And there's no half-assing your job as a CRA. Like the report, the trip report that you are given, every CRO has their own templates, but they're all essentially the same, is extremely detailed. And they require extreme attention to every single aspect of the study from you. There's no way of faking it and half-assing your job. I'm sure there are ways, but it will not last long. And those CRAs that do end up half-assing it for whatever reason, either the sponsor doesn't audit, the FDA doesn't audit, the CRO doesn't audit, and they find all kinds of stuff, right? And then that CRA is let go, but because there is such a shortage in the industry, that CRA usually goes to another company. So it's not like you just go on site and then you can visit the city and travel and go at the site from 9 to 12 and then finish and then spend the rest of the time out and about in the city. That's not how it works. You may eventually, every now and then, get a site with very little activity, and you could finish all your reg and the small amount of SDV, which is source data verification, that you can do at that site visit. And you may leave, instead of the typical 5 or 6 p.m., you may be able to get out like at 1. Okay, but then you still got to write your report, but then you have some more time, okay, in the city. And then you'll go back to your hotel room, finish your report, send it to your team lead, collect all supporting documents from the site. So any essential documents that have been updated since your last visit, logs for just about everything, informed consent log, IP inventory log, which is investigational product, enrollment log. There's logs for everything. Delegation log, training log. There's literally a log for everything you should collect at every visit. Temperature log. Okay, these go with your report to your team lead. Your team lead will then make comments or request revisions to the report. So that takes a few days. Then you have a finalized report, and then you could send that site your follow-up letter. Now, sounds simple. That's a lot. And by the way, the revisions occur days after your visit has ended. So now you're probably in another city at another site doing another monitoring visit in which you're not so lucky and you have to stay the entire day from 9 to 5, 9 to 6, and you're still not finished. You still didn't 100% SDV. You didn't get through all the regulatory. There's no way you could complete your report. You may need to come another day at that site, or you may need to have a bunch of action items and come back to that site at your next monitoring visit and finish all of that and then anything new that they had going on. And your team lead is most likely going to ask you why you didn't complete everything. And then you're going to have to tell them it was a lot of data or whatever the case was. I had to train the site because I saw that they weren't adhering to the protocol. There's all kinds of things that could go wrong. And then you got to do your report, revisions, all those things, catch a flight, go back home probably. Most CRAs are home-based. So the days that you're not traveling or on site, you're at home. Now, 8 to 15 days on site, okay? Those are not travel days. Not all of those are travel days. So there's more days that you're traveling. So let's say you arrive at a site. Let's say you have a monitoring visit Monday morning. That's 1 day on site, okay? You fly in Sunday night. Okay, so that's a travel day. That doesn't count as a monitoring day. You spend the entire day there, and then you either fly out Monday night or you fly out Tuesday morning. All right, so now you just had 3 days for one monitoring visit. 2 travel days and 1 monitoring visit day. You can arrange for you to arrive Monday morning and leave Monday evening. You're going to be extremely tired. I've seen it done. And then you get your next day. So you got to plan your next monitoring visit for your next site and then your next one. And 8 to 15 visits on site every month adds up really quickly. That's a lot of revisions. That's a lot of flights. That's a lot of hotel rooms. That's a lot of documents you got to collect. That's a lot of potential issues with that site. And this is just for one study. Some CRAs have 2 studies going on. If you're a contract CRA, I know some that have 4 studies going on, right? But contract CRAs are a little different. They get paid more and they can have more control over their schedule, but there's still no way around the days on site. That's the way the CRO, the business model of the CRO, which is changing now with risk-based monitoring, but still as of this podcast, May 2018, that's still the way CROs get paid, is sending you, the CRA, on site for a site visit. Okay, so hopefully that kind of gives you an idea. And it's not just going to be watching this video and then all of a sudden you understand what it takes to be a CRA. I've got tons of videos, like hours and hours and hours of videos where you can learn, like, at a granular level exactly what CRAs do when they go on site. I mean, we've gone through monitoring reports and we've dissected monitoring reports on so many videos. So just go, spend hours on these YouTube videos to get a true sense of what a monitor actually does. I'm just giving you an overview, macro, bird's eye view look at what CRAs do on a monthly basis, okay, and then on a daily basis. So you get paid a lot, but it's not fun. It's very stressful. And it's no wonder why my biggest growing client base, so for those that don't know, in addition to being an extremely part-time CRA and then owning a startup CRO and owning sites, research sites, which we're going to get into right now, I also do consulting for clients across the country that want to start their own sites or need help managing their clinics. And essentially what we do is we get them studies. So we do business development for them. We'll do the feasibility surveys for them. We'll do the contracts and budgets for them. We'll create source docs for them. We'll help them with all the trainings, everything, SOPs, everything that it takes to have a clinic, get studies, and then execute on those studies and keep the sponsors happy. We do. My biggest growing customer base, I literally talk to a CRA every day, Monday through Friday. I could do it on Saturdays and Sundays too. I choose not to. Literally every day I talk to at least one CRA that wants to open a clinic. Why? Because it's stressful being a CRA. It gets old. Yes, you make a lot of money, but it gets old. The traveling wears you down. It's hard to maintain a family life when you're out of the house half of the time every month, right? So you got to have that support system in place at home with family. It adds up. It gets old, right? The money's great. The benefits are great. The job security is great, but it gets old fast. So it's no wonder that a lot of my students in the CRA Academy, they come in wanting to be CRAs. By the time we're done with the 3-month training and then usually a 1 to 3 month internship period, they no longer want to be CRAs. They want to be coordinators or regulatory affairs or just people that don't need to travel that much. And they're okay earning less because they want to keep more of their life. So it's a very grueling job. And yes, it's rewarding in the sense that you're contributing towards better medical treatments, advances, breakthroughs, cures. You're literally helping save lives, but it's on a daily basis. It's mundane. It's travel, it's hustle, it's grind. It gets old. And eventually some CRAs, a growing number of CRAs is what I'm seeing, want to open up their own clinics. So when it comes to opening up a clinic, it could be just as difficult. In my opinion, it's easier because you don't have to travel. The only time you'll travel as a study coordinator or a research site owner is when you go to investigator meetings. So, every study that you get, you can expect an investigator meeting for most of them, unless you're an add-on site, in which case you won't go to an investigator meeting because they've already had one. So you'll just be given the study, and then you'll have a training either over the phone or at your SIV. They'll do a training for your site. But it's, in my opinion, it's much easier to run a research clinic or at least work at a research clinic than it is to be a CRA. Now, there are some differences. CRAs are great operationally. They understand how to run a study. They understand what the coordinator should be doing. What they're not so good at oftentimes is managing the business aspects, because when you run a research clinic, what you're really doing is managing relationships. You're managing your physicians' expectations. You're keeping them encouraged to do research. You're encouraging them to refer patients. You're encouraging them to have oversight. Then you're keeping the sponsors happy. So you're managing those relationships. You're making sure that your CRA is happy with your site, which translates to a positive feedback on their trip reports, which translates to positive feedback to the sponsor, which results in repeat business from that CRO or sponsor. That's all great stuff. And then you have to manage the relationships with your study participants. You've got to first convince them to do the study. Then you got to convince them to remain in the study and remain compliant in the study. So all of this is definitely a full-time job, and it's something that never gets better. Okay, even if your clinic's doing great, these relationships, these three stakeholders, the physicians, the sponsors, and the patients, they constantly need attending to. Okay, it's like having a garden. Like, you just constantly got to water, fertilize, take care of it, spend time there. That's the only way it's going to work. Even when things are going great, if you ignore it just a little bit, things are going to start to fall apart. So you can never ignore the biz dev. You can never ignore the relationships that you're cultivating from these three stakeholders. And most importantly, or simultaneously, you've got to watch the bottom line. You've got to watch your profits. You've got to watch your expenses. You've got to watch your top line revenues. You've got to watch where the money's going, when it's coming in. Have you invoiced for everything? This can all be extremely stressful as well. However, in my opinion, despite all of that, I still think it's a little easier to be a site owner and definitely a study coordinator than it is to be a CRA. Okay, so just because you're eliminating the travel time. So you go to the office, you stay there all day, you manage these relationships, you do everything I just described, but then you go home, you sleep in your own bed, you see your family, and then you can even work from home. Okay, you're not supposed to bring source documents home with you, but you can work on the business from home. You can negotiate a contract or a budget from your home. You can call patients from your home. You can call PIs and put out fires, through emails or through teleconferences from anywhere. When you're a CRA and you're required, the CRO is monetizing you only when you're on site. There's really no way around that. So that's one of the reasons why I think owning a site is slightly easier than being a CRA. The risk is, of course, if you're not a good business person, okay, you're not going to make money at all. You can actually lose money running a site. You can't lose money being a CRA. Okay, as a site owner, you eat what you catch. As a CRA, you're just fed. Okay, but you're being overfed many times, so you don't have an appetite to continue eating. As a site owner, you're never overfed because once you get more studies than you can handle, you bring in new staff, new PIs, maybe you expand to another location, and you can run your same SOPs or tweak your SOPs a little differently, and it's a scalable business. As a CRA, even as a contract CRA who controls their schedule and controls how many contracts they work on, you can't scale your hours. You only have 24 hours in a day. You're only a human being. You can't scale your capabilities. As a research clinic, as a business, you can scale that. I know many research clinics that have dozens of locations, or they just have one huge site with 50 coordinators, and they can scale, right? The owner is not doing all that work. They're training people. They're putting systems in place. So it's very different being an entrepreneur versus being a CRA. But many site owners, the best site owners in my experiences have been coordinators and CRAs because they understand how to keep, at least they understand how to keep the sponsors happy. As a coordinator, you probably understand how to keep the CRAs happy and the patients happy and maybe even the PI happy. So the best site owners, in my opinion, are the study coordinators. Probably second best is a tie between a PI or a former CRA that's now dedicated full-time to research. So a lot of work in this industry, regardless of whether you're going to be a CRA or a site owner or a coordinator. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of relationships to be managed on the site side. On the CRA side, it's more just the work, the hours you're putting in, and there's still internal politics. You've got to keep your sites happy if you want them to do your action items on time, which makes your job easier and makes your job less stressful. You've got to manage your relationship with your team lead and your project manager. There's a lot of that going on from the CRA side, but from the site side, that's like all you're dealing with as an owner. And the work is still there, right? Like the patients come in, you actually have to do the work on the patients as a coordinator or as a site director. The patients come in, you got to first convince them to get there, which recruitment is a huge issue in this industry, which is why I keep saying we need more research naive physicians who have robust private practices. So both are difficult. There's an extraordinarily large amount of work. Another thing I need to add, when opening a new site, you got to be patient. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight. You're not just going to apply for studies one day on clinicaltrials.gov and get a study the next day or the next week or even the next month. Even if you do get a site selection visit, that may be a month or 2 months or 3 months after you filled out a feasibility survey. You may have already forgotten that you've done that feasibility survey, and then they call you to do a site selection visit, and then it may take another month, 2 months, or 3 months to get your SIV in order. In between that time, you're doing all the budgets and the startup regulatory and the protocol training. So now you're already 6 months out before you can have patients come in, which means you can start generating revenue. So it's difficult in the sense, as a site owner, that the money is not immediate. It's easier, slightly less of a workload, just because the absence of travel time makes a huge difference, in my opinion, as opposed to being a CRA where the money's immediate. I mean, you'll start getting a paycheck right away, but it takes a toll on your life, on your health, quality of life. However, that being said, there's many happy CRAs and there's many happy site owners, and the opposite is also true. There's many disgruntled and unhappy and miserable CRAs, and there's many miserable site owners. I think and everyone's different. Not everyone's meant to be a site owner, and not everyone's meant to be a CRA. In my opinion, I do think most CRAs can be good site owners. I'm not sure if most CRAs can earn their income as a site owner as opposed to as a CRA, just because they may not be good at managing a business, managing all these relationships, and just continuing to repeat the process, especially biz dev and recruiting doctors and recruiting new staff and training staff and then getting the patients in. That's tough. That gets tedious too, and that gets stressful because now you're adding the entire financial side to it, where you have to actually worry about how the bills are getting paid. As a CRA, you just got to worry about how to maintain a quality of life while you're doing all your site visits every month. Now, I know many successful former CRAs that are site directors, but I also know many that couldn't do it well and had to go back to being CRAs. So it all depends on you. You got to know who you are. You got to understand where your strengths are, and you got to be realistic. Okay, and I think that's the point of this entire podcast, is how to be realistic and how to manage your own expectations, whether you want to be a CRA or a site owner. So I'd love to hear from all of you. Again, there's so many videos I've done on this topic, podcasts that I've done on this topic. Just go get really in depth on these things, but I'm just trying to give you an overview of the entire process. Bottom line, a lot of work. Talk to y'all later. Let me know what you think about this, and catch you on the next episode. Take care.